The big news of the day was Christian Wilkins' release. That was following day 2 of Raiders training camp. But actually, what happened at training camp in practice? That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, disc number 2 for July 25th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day, and in this case, maybe your second listen of the day as well. We always appreciate you. You continue to make this show grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. And again, in this instance, doing double duty. So we definitely shout out to Ari. We definitely appreciate him putting in the extra work on today, a special day, as we got a double disc edition for you on the show. So shout out to Ari. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we do have the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. We will close out the show. Segment number 3, plenty of calls, plenty of texts. Not only have to do with Christian Wilkins and his release, but also just to play on the field, where the Raiders are after a couple days of training camp, the expectations for the rest of camp, and obviously leading into the 2025 season. We'll close out the show, close out the week, hearing from you, 707-654-4693. Segment number 2, we will dip it back into the Christian Wilkins conversation in disc number 1. And segment number 3 talked about possibilities inside the building that can replace Christian Wilkins. It really had my focus on Jonah Laulu, as that's the guy that I had a chance to catch up with following practice on Thursday. But we'll talk about a couple more guys that are in the building, but also an interesting name that is outside of the building that has been practicing, and not practicing, but tried out for the Raiders, worked out for them in recent days. So clearly a guy that they can have on their quick dial if they need to do that. So we'll dive back into the Christian Wilkins conversation. We'll do that segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it really has to do with practice. We talking about practice, not a game, practice. What we saw on Thursday at training camp. We'll jump into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and it's Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create the account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. So it's so funny. I had so much lined up to talk about on today's show as a recap of Thursday's practice. I had all kind of notes, wanted to bring them to the table, and then we all know how that got thrown out of the door. I mean, I had gone through my radio show. I'd done 2.5 hours on the Raiders, on practice, on expectations for wide receivers, and a whole lot more. And then all of a sudden the Christian Wilkins news broke down. So want to go ahead and jump into some actual, conversation about what we saw there on Thursday. First of all, want to give a big shout out to Raider Nation. I know it was last minute that we let everyone know that practice was open and free to everyone. You didn't need a ticket. All you needed to show up. First come, first serve. Doors open up 7 o'clock, and then, of course, practice started at 8:30. Today's practice is not open like that, but there is another one coming up. Matter of fact, there's a whole handful of practices that are going to be open and available to the fans just to show up like you did on Thursday. But it was a much bigger crowd, much louder crowd. Energy was there, something that the team, the organization definitely wanted to see and embrace, and actually got to chop it up with a few people that showed up because they heard on this show that it was free and available to get into practice. All you had to do was show up, and they did that and got to see practice. So I'll let you know. I do believe the very next one is going to be this Sunday. So, that's one. And if you follow me on Twitter at your boy Q254, I could tweet out to let you know for sure. But I do believe it's coming up on Sunday, and then there's going to be a handful of practices just like that one. It's going to be basically all the outdoor practices. Like today, I believe is an indoor practice, and so the indoor practices, because there's not enough room in the indoor facility to have fans there. So when they're outside, that's when it's going to be good for fans to be there. When they're inside, there won't be any fans there. So like I said, I will update you on all the practices where fans are available. But let's get into actually what happened on the football field. And Jamal Adams is a guy that we've been talking about quite a bit, a guy that the Raiders signed as a free agent, a guy that in 2024 played 5 games for 2 teams total, a guy that's been banged up quite a bit. Also a guy that GM John Spytek, when he joined the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920 on Wednesday, said, we have a plan for Jamal Adams that is not like the normal safety position. So I've talked about the box safety, talked about what he did the first year that he was in Seattle under Pete Carroll, where he had 9.5 sacks, and also saw what I saw on Wednesday when he was, getting after the quarterback and lining up in the slot and then just, going in and, like I said, kind of blitzing the QB and how that worked. And I could see that being the role. I definitely expect Jamal Adams to play near the line of scrimmage. Well, on Thursday, he was actually working out with the linebackers during the individual period. So he literally was in the linebacking room. So if you think about this, because again, he kind of plays that role anyway near the line of scrimmage. If you have Elandon Roberts, veteran, you have Devin White, veteran, you have Jermaine Pratt, veteran, and all of a sudden you're able to get something out of Jamal Adams as well and have him in that linebacking room and just have that guy on the field. I mentioned it before that Patrick Graham likes to have 3 safeties on the field if he can, but Jamal Adams playing that kind of that linebacker role, all of a sudden something that you looked at as could be a possible weakness looks like it could be a real strength of that team. And, I want to also talk about the linebacker room and Jermaine Pratt, because I do feel like I've probably underestimated what he's going to bring to the table. I mean, again, if you go back and look at Bengals film and what he was able to do in 2024, again, racked up a ton of tackles. And, from everyone that I talked to, a lot of people said, well, they were 8 to 10 yards down the field. But, I had it brought to my attention that, yeah, but Q, with all the scoring that Cincinnati was doing, how much were their opponents actually running against them? So how many times did he have an opportunity to make a tackle for loss, and get in the backfield? And it was a really good point. Again, just a veteran, a guy that had a lot of tackles under his belt, has been a captain for Cincinnati, and again, knows what he can do in this Patrick Graham scheme, and Patrick Graham knows how he can use him in this scheme. So the more and more I look at this linebacking room, got a chance to catch up with Elandon Roberts following practice on Thursday. It just feels like and sounds like they're very confident that they're going to be not a weakness of this Raiders defense, but instead a strength. So I thought that was an interesting note that Jamal Adams was working out with the linebackers in the individual period. Quarterbacks Geno Smith and Aiden O'Connell, both guys looked really good. There is no quarterback controversy. I feel like I have to say that every time I talk about him, but Aiden O'Connell looked really good. He looked sharp. I know a lot of people have been talking about him. Geno Smith is Geno Smith. Now, both guys had a turnover on Thursday. Geno Smith just got picked off by Isaiah Palomau, and it was just a really good play by Isaiah, and also a play that was a ball that was targeted to the rookie Dante Thornton Jr., and he just tried to watch the ball into his hands as opposed to going and trying to high point the ball. He didn't go try to high point the ball. He didn't attack the ball. He waited for the ball to get to him, and it gave Isaiah an extra second to go get it. But Isaiah made a really good play. I want to give him a ton of props for the interception, also being able to get his feet down in bounds before he goes out. Isaiah has an opportunity to really be a big factor in this Raiders defense, as they gave him that contract extension, not for what he's done, but for what they expect him to do moving forward. So that was a nice interception that was made. Trey Taylor, the safety out of Air Force, he also had a tip drill interception that was off the hands of Colin Johnson. And man, I hate when Colin Johnson doesn't make plays. Colin Johnson's been in the NFL for 5 years. He's number 17 currently on the Raiders, and he was a really good wide receiver at the University of Texas, and that's when I was in Central Texas and I was covering the Big 12, and I remember seeing him, and he was a guy that was a difference maker, has the size, has the hands, but never has really been able to figure it out since he was in the NFL. And there was a ball that went to him, Aiden O'Connell threw, and it just bounced off his hands, and it tipped up in the air. And to Trey Taylor's credit, he made the play and came down with it. So those were the 2 interceptions that happened on Thursday, but for the most part, Geno Smith and Aiden O'Connell, I thought, looked really good. Also, we've been talking about wide receivers and who's going to step up and play a big role. Trey Tucker, he's got that speed. I'm wondering exactly how Chip Kelly is going to use him, how creative they're going to get with him. But Aiden O'Connell threw him a nice ball to the sideline, and he went up and he made the catch. Problem is, when he came down, he was out of bounds. And, I was standing there, and when I'm ever at practice, and for some of you, you get to see me and you'll talk to me there, and you'll see me normally in someone's ear or listening to someone talk to me. I was blessed to have on Thursday Kadri Ishmael. He's Kadir's dad. He obviously is a former NFL player. He's the Rocket's brother. Remember, it was the Rocket and the Missile. Well, Kadri's been there the last couple days. He's going to be there again today, so I'll get to chop it up with him again. But, we started talking about that play, and so whenever a wide receiver makes a play or doesn't make a play, it's always great to have a guy like Kadri to be able to kind of bounce off, okay, so what did you see here in this situation? What happened? And what happened is he said right away, he was like, see, what he should have done is this red line right here. He should have been running closer to that. And then when the ball comes, then you start to fade towards the sideline because you'll allow yourself the room to not only go up and high point the ball and catch it, but come down with your feet in bounds, where he started to fade too early. And then when he caught the ball, by that time, the DB could just give him a little nudge and boom, he's out of bounds, right? And there's no more of the, the pushing the wide receiver out rule that they used to have back in the day. They don't have that anymore. So, he's ruled out of bounds. So he's got to establish himself and be able to run the crisp routes and be able to play those kind of, I don't want to say games, but understand where he is on the field and how to put himself in position to make plays. That was something that stood out to me as well. But I still, with that being said, think Trey Tucker has a role that he could play with this team, and Chip Kelly can get creative with him. He's got that speed. Speed is something that you can't teach. I just feel like there's more than just one thing you could do with him, and that's really what he's done so far in his career, has been that one-trick pony where he's trying to stretch the field, and that's really all. Thayer Munford, he returned to practice. He missed on Wednesday, the first day of practice. He was back, so that's obviously a positive. Jordan Meredith, this stood out to me as well. Jordan Meredith got a lot of reps at the center position as well on Thursday. Now, we know that that's Jackson Powers-Johnson's spot. So I'm intrigued, and I asked Vinny Bonsignore what did he think by that, when it comes to competition, and he feels like, and this has kind of been the theme so far early in, in the practices, and there's only been two, is that they're trying to mix it up. They're trying to make sure that, other guys can slide into a spot just in case. So they had Jackson Powers-Johnson taking a few snaps with Aiden O'Connell just in case Geno Smith were to go down in a game, and all of a sudden Aiden O'Connell's got to go in there. So all of a sudden now JPJ's got to be familiar with Aiden O'Connell. So it's almost like one of those scenarios where they're trying to set him up for a game time scenario, even though it's early in training camp still. They're trying to go like now is right now. And then the same thing for what if JPJ goes down, who's going to get some reps at center? So they slid in Jordan Meredith at that. So that's kind of what Vinny's thoughts were on that, but I'm definitely paying attention to that today to see if we see more of Meredith at the center position as opposed to JPJ. That was something that stood out to me. But again, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of mixing and matching and guys going in and out of different spots. When the team period began, Tyree Wilson looked like he was getting back to the quarterback. Matter of fact, there was a couple plays where he would have had a sack. There was a couple plays Max Crosby would have had a sack. I mean, they're doing some good things along that defensive line. And I know there's no Christian Wilkins, but there hasn't been any Christian Wilkins. They've got a lot of different dudes along that defensive line that could play that role and fill that void. So there were some good things that I saw defensively as well. You saw Zamir White from the running back position, Sincere McCormick from the running back position. Both those guys look really good. Both those guys had reps when it came to, special teams as well, kick return, punt return. They were out there on that, and not saying that that's going to be their position, but they're working on everything. They're being a part of it. And the one thing about Zamir White, one of the things that felt like to me that he did last year in preparation for getting the chance to be the full-time starting running back, right, taking over for Josh Jacobs, I feel like he got too big. I feel like he hit the weights and he bulked up too much, and that may have slowed him down a little bit. Obviously the scheme I don't think fit him very well either, but it just seemed like there was a lot that went wrong for Zamir White. Again, early in practice, it's only acclimation period, and no pads are on right now, so you can't really learn the physicality of the running backs and the offensive line at this stage of the game. But him and Sincere McCormick both look really well. Look really good, and those are the guys that I kept talking about. We know Ashton Genty is penciled in as running back 1. We know Raheem Mostert has a chance to be running back 2. He's a touchdown machine. Who is it going to be behind those two guys, right? I don't feel like it's going to be Sincere McCormick and Zamir White. I feel like it's going to be Sincere McCormick or Zamir White. So who's going to earn that nod? But for the most part, again, in the acclimation period of camp, you saw a lot of energy. You saw a lot of movement. Seemed like guys were going pretty quickly on the install, and they knew what they were doing, which is a positive, right? They still had some room to clean up. They had things that they still had to work on. Every man to a T said that they still had some stuff to work on, but it seemed like that they were going pretty quickly and didn't look like they were thinking a lot. I guess that's the best way to word it. So all in all, again, not want to get too high or too low on an individual practice, but I thought job was well done for the Raiders in what they did in camp on Thursday. That was before we found out about the Christian Wilkins news about the release of the big fella. So we'll dive into that, back into that, coming up in segment number 2. And then segment number 3, we'll hear from you at 707-654-4693. Ari Mayrob from the 33rdteam.com had a pretty good detail on everything going on with Christian Wilkins, what led to his release. You'll hear that next, and we'll speak on a guy outside of the building that could possibly be added to the roster now that Wilkins is released. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on this show, and that is Gametime. As a matter of fact, it's the title sponsor of today's show. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. Unless you're my guy Vegas Jess and they just happen to pop up in your hand. That's just how it happens for him. Everyone else, the rest of us common folks, we have to go through Gametime. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merchandise, or even invite a bigger group to go with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. The clear seat view, that's what I like them. That's the game changer. You can check out where your seats are in the app before you buy so you know exactly where you'll be. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. I know it's Disc 2, and I know we spent the whole Disc 1 talking about Christian Wilkins, what led to the release, what's going to happen moving forward. Talked about Jonah Laulu as a second-year guy from Oklahoma that could possibly, take that void and fill that void that's left by him. Obviously, Adam Butler is going to have a lot to say about that. He'll be the first guy on the line, but I did want to dip back into it real quickly here in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Disc number 2, doing a little QPOC style here. My guy, Ari Mayrob from 33rdteam.com, he actually had a very, very detailed, sound and thoughts on the Christian Wilkins situation, what led to it, and where it's going to go from here. Check it out.
The Las Vegas Raiders are releasing defensive tackle Christian Wilkins after just 1 year, just 5 games, after signing him to a 4-year, $110 million contract with over $80 million guaranteed. It was done by the last regime, which was Tom Telesco, Antonio Pierce. He is being released over here during training camp. He has been on the physically unable to perform list. And recently, the new head coach, Pete Carroll, said it's been a very difficult process over here, recovering from a Jones fracture, which he suffered last year during the season, ended his season in October. And essentially, the Raiders are releasing him, and they're taking away all of his guaranteed money, which is remaining on the contract. It is a lot of money, north of $35 million per year. They're taking away all of it. And essentially, the argument the Raiders are making is the way that he has been recovering from this foot injury, something must have happened away from the facility. And if you read the finer details inside of a contract, there are a number of ways to avoid a contract. The Raiders believe that he has done that with the way he has recovered. Wilkins and his camp believes that is not true. They've already filed a grievance, and this is going to eventually go to an arbitrator, and it's going to be pretty messy, and it's going to go crazy. It's going to be a very, very big deal. But he has not been recovering well from that injury. Clearly, they put him on the PUP list before training camp started. He's been on and off with a walking boot all offseason long. And essentially, they are now releasing him from the team. He's going to become a free agent. His career in Las Vegas is over after 1 season and 5 games. And now he becomes a free agent. We'll see which teams will be interested. We'll see where he is physically, when he'll be ready. Like I said, when Pete Carroll spoke about this situation, he basically said the following. It was just a couple of days ago. The quote that he said is that he's not ready to get back out on the field. We're in the midst of a long and very challenging process. So fortunately for us, there's a lot of time, and we're going to take every bit of it. And it wasn't really that much. A few days later, he is being released. And this is something that could definitely get ugly between the two sides. Like I said, an arbitrator will figure this out about where the guaranteed money goes, who actually gets the money. But as of right now, the Raiders are releasing him. They only had it from 1 year. They paid him for 1 year of base salary and his signing bonus. And essentially the rest of his money, the Raiders are going to be holding right now because they believe he breached the contract with the way he recovered from this injury. A lot more is going to come out in the next couple of days. But this is some major news around the NFL for a player who was one of the biggest free agents last year in free agency.
So there's Ari Mayrov right there from the 33rdteam.com talking about the Christian Wilkins situation and really emphasizing that this thing could get ugly, right? Now that it's in the hands of the NFLPA, they filed the grievance. They're trying to get Christian Wilkins paid. The Raiders are trying not to pay him. Look, there's, as I mentioned before, that the money is the money, right? I mean, whatever they end up paying, whatever they end up don't paying, whatever the case may be, that's already, you know, that doesn't even matter at this stage of the game. Right now, they're trying to prepare. They're trying to get ready for an upcoming season. So it's not about Christian Wilkins. It's about who's in the building and who's possibly outside of the building that they can rock with to fill that void or at least help, you know, create some more depth at that position. Adam Butler, talked about him off top. Liki Fotu, he's a 6-year veteran. Jonah Laulu, you heard from him in segment number 3 and disc number 1. Tonka Hemingway, JJ Pegues, those guys are rookies. So, you know, as much as people get excited about them, I'm pretty excited about them. They're going to have to, you know, prove their worth as quickly as possible. Tank Booker, same thing. Laki Tassi is a guy that, you know, I don't expect a whole lot from. If anything, you know, he's part of the Gateway program. Trevin May, he's the undrafted free agent out of Baylor. And then you've got Zach Carter. So those are the guys that are in-house that could help fill the void and the loss of Christian Wilkins. Well, what about out of the house? How about Quentin Jefferson? Former Raider, former Seahawk, been in the league 8 seasons. So he worked out for the Raiders not too long ago. He was in the building. Obviously, he's got familiarity with Pete Carroll. So if there's somebody that knows him and knows what he can do, it would be Pete Carroll. Over the course of his 8-year career, he's got 192 total tackles, 26.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, and 9 pass deflected. So not too bad, right? He was drafted by the Seahawks in the 5th round of the 2016 draft, played there at Maryland. He played for the Seahawks in 2016 and 19, and then he had a brief stay with the Rams, the Bills, the Raiders, and the Jets. He's played for the Seahawks 3 separate times, and in 2024, Jefferson signed a 1-year deal with the Browns. He got released midseason, signed with the Bills again for the remainder of the season. So obviously he's been well-traveled, but definitely a guy that can help fill the void. I thought he was a good player while he was with the Raiders. Again, very briefly, he was with the Raiders before, but I do think he could provide some pretty good depth and help out with the guys that I've already mentioned, the guys that are already in the building. I don't think that you can have too much depth when it comes to the defensive line in general. I think that could be a strength of the Raiders team. I know that Christian Wilkins was really supposed to put them over the top, but they're without him. That's just, I mean, that's going to be a no-brainer. So right now they got to see what they can get out of these guys. And Adam Butler is the real lone vet. I know Liki Fotu's been in the league 6 years, but Adam Butler is really the dude. And everyone else is really kind of young. So Jonah Laulu, as I mentioned before, he could take that next step. And he's excited for the opportunity, as you can hear from the conversation that we had following practice on Thursday. But, you know, again, like I said, you're expecting these young guys to step up. The one thing I will say is that, and I've mentioned it many times before, that Robbie Leonard, the defensive line coach, I think is a really stinking good defensive line coach. And he seems to be, when the guys go down, I mean, think about last year, all the guys that went down the defensive line, and they still were pretty good, right? I mean, you had Max Crosby go down after 12 games, and really he was injured after week 2, right? Malcolm Kuntz never even made it to the regular season. He tore his ACL in the preseason. You had Christian Wilkins go down after 5 games, and then he was done, right? And so you had guys like Jonah Laulu out there. You had guys out there like Zach Carter. You had guys out there like Adam Butler, right? You had guys that were just trying to fill a void. Tyree Wilson, right? This is a good opportunity for Tyree, I should say. He has a good opportunity, and because he has the versatility, he could play inside and out. And it sounded like even when Max Crosby was talking about the defensive line, he had mentioned that, you know, Tyree is getting some looks inside. So he had already kind of hinted at that, but then he cleaned it up and said, well, you know, he's got some looks inside the last couple seasons. But that stood out to me when Max said that. And that's when he met with us on Wednesday following practice, to the point where Paul Gutierrez was standing next to me, and I kind of looked at him like, wait, did you just catch that too? the way he said it, and then he cleaned it up. Max knows the media game, right? He's got the podcast. He's in the media all the time, so he knows when if you say something, all of a sudden, hey, man, I got to clean that up a little bit or whatever. So that did stand out to me. So I feel like that there's a plan to see Tyree playing inside even more than, what we may have expected, especially because they all kind of knew what was going on with this Christian Wilkins situation. But Quentin Jefferson is a name, is a guy that I would not be surprised if sometime today, or maybe it already happened, depending on what time you're listening to this show, that the Raiders sign him. Maybe he's a guy that they signed over the weekend, but I know for a fact he has been in the building and he was working out. He was working out the same day that all the flurries of moves happened before the Raiders' actually first day of practice. Remember on Tuesday, after Pete Carroll opened up training camp with his press conference, it also was like boom, 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 boom. All these moves were made. Yeah, Quentin Jefferson was in the building working out that day as well. And so they might have just waited until the whole Christian Wilkins situation happened before they decided to, move on and fill that void with Quentin Jefferson. Again, that's not me reporting it. I'm just kind of spitballing and thinking what they may do to at least add some depth for training camp. Because right now you got a 90-man roster, right? Obviously, at the end of training camp preseason, you got to cut it down to 53, and then they'll have to make some tough decisions. But as I talked to Jonah Laulu, feel good about him, feel really good about Adam Butler. Who else is going to step up in that defensive tackle position? An area that I didn't think that I was really going to focus in on that much during training camp, because at some point I expected Christian Wilkins to come back. Now that I know he's not returning, that's definitely something that we'll all be focusing on. I'm sure there'll be a lot more conversation about that position as well. And the opportunity when we get to talk to head coach Pete Carroll should be some interesting conversations next time we talk to him and defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, right? That'll be a fun conversation as well. What do you do now that you know the big fella is not coming back? But we want to hear from you. Didn't get to hear from you in disc 1. That's the main reason that we're doing disc 2, because I wanted to talk about practice and also wanted to hear from you before we head into the weekend. 707-654-4693. Your calls and texts will close out the show. We'll do it in segment number 3 of disc 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to let you know that this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. All kind of shows are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should do too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league, you'll have a blast with Yahoo Fantasy. Folks have been playing Yahoo Fantasy for years, and they love how smooth the draft day experience is. And for a while now, they've got the easy setup, the great mobile app, and the smack talk that just hits different in the message board. So get involved in all the action. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. And it all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL, and make this fantasy season the best one yet. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, disc number 2. Your calls and texts draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. Wanted to make sure we close out the show strong, close out the week really strong as we head into the weekend by hearing from you. So again, 707-654-4693. We'll start out with Danny from Arizona, calling to ask a question about a potential replacement for defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. Here he is, Danny in Arizona.
Q, what up, Q? This is Danny out of Mesa, AZ. So I'm calling because I'm sure you've heard the news about Wilkins. Kind of shocking, to be honest, but I mean, at the same time, I don't know. It took him a long time to rehab that foot, and he's still not ready. So, I mean, in part of it, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, kind of tough. But we didn't really get to see him, to be fair. But anyways, question I'm asking is, do you think if we end up keeping some of that money that was guaranteed to him, depending on how the grievance goes, we should go and swing for the fences and maybe go trade for that Bengals DT, what's his name, Hendrickson, I believe? I don't know, just a thought, but I mean, why not go for it, especially if you have the money to do it now. Anyways, let me know what you think, man. Thank you for everything. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Big Danny, thanks for the call. And it's funny, I've seen a lot of folks talk about Trey Hendrickson and bringing him in, trading for him. John Spytek, we're waiting. Go make the move for Trey Hendrickson. But he is a pure edge rusher. He's not a defensive tackle. He only gets after the quarterback. He doesn't stop the run very well. He's strictly a pass rusher. And if they want that, I get it. Maybe if they move Tyree inside, that would make sense. But I don't think, especially given the circumstances and the fact that, they just had to move on from a high-ticket free agent, I don't think that they're thinking about bringing in another big money guy. Because remember, the reason Trey's not in Cincinnati is he's waiting for that big contract. So I don't see John Spytek going out and making a move. Again, it's not apples to apples. It's not defensive tackle to defensive tackle. He is an edge rusher. And obviously Christian Wilkins was the D tackle. He was the big fella in the middle. He's moving the pocket. Trey Hendrickson is trying to sack the quarterback at all costs. So I don't really think that is a realistic thought. I get it. It makes sense just because, he plays along the defensive line. He's a big name out there, but I don't think that this staff is in the business of that. I think that they like the guys that they have, and if they do go outside the building and get somebody, it'll be like a Quentin Jefferson, like I mentioned in segment number 2. Today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Up next, but thank you for the call as always. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Swift, the Majors Raider. Says, Q, first time texting you guys. Been listening to you for a few years now since I became a local back in 2018. I really like our new staff. I think the front office was the best offseason move we've done. Adding and drafting weapons, we now have opened up a lot of our eyes. I'm excited. As for the Jamal Adams signing, I like and dislike it. Great safety at the linebacker nickel position, but not as great in coverage. He looks very healthy in the recent post that's been surfacing on social media. I think Pete and Chip can put all the pieces together and win us a lot of games. Thanks for your time. Go Raiders. That's Swift, the Major Raider, and thanks so much for the text. Do appreciate you. Glad that you're able to text in for the first time, but please don't make it your last time. That is for sure. As far as Jamal Adams goes, I like the signing as well as long as he's healthy. I know he's not good in coverage. I get that. He is not that guy. But again, if he plays a role that they expect him to play, the linebacker, the box safety, get up there close to the line of scrimmage, maybe have a certain package for him, have a package where you can have 3 safeties on the field at the same time and his responsibility is not coverage, I think that that's a good way to go. They've got to find a way to get creative with him, and I think that that's what Patrick Graham is going to be able to do. So thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you, and as I mentioned, thanks so much for being a new texter. Up next, got a call from Raider X. He's calling to talk about training camp, the old vets, young players, and the different skill sets that they all bring to the table. Here he is, Raider X.
Yo, Q, this is Raider X. Just wanted to talk about some of the feedback we're getting on the Raiders training camp and a lot of the info. Thanks for the info. Based upon all the interviews, player interviews, inside, all that good stuff. Love all the feedback, and what I really want to talk about is the insertion of all this new talent, new people that they're bringing in, old vets, new players. It seems like there's a lot of individuals bringing specific skill sets, and I'm very interested on how they're going to utilize these skill sets. There's a lot of them that are similar, some that has very specific or limited specific, like specialized, and just really seeing how the coaches are going to do that and how they're going to utilize these talents. Because for example, looking on how you have, the 2 tight ends, how they're going to sit there and use that for tendencies or set plays or utilize the diversity of Genti out there. Just really looking for, even the insertion of, if he makes that team, Jamal Adams. Is he going to be sitting there playing in the box? Is he going to be being, added to the line, playing a linebacker or playing a strong safety, going over on the nickel? How are this going to be? It almost seems like there's going to be a lot of, insertion of guessing games, a lot of more unpredictability. Looks like we're going to be playing with a lot more infusion of just intelligent mind games. And I can see that because you talk about, Pete Carroll is a professor. The guy has the ability to kind of been to the war chest, go there and reflect back on some of his legendary battles and pull it. Not only him, let's not forget some of the experience. Ray Olsen, again, I think is going to sit there and lead also with the Chip Kelly offense. We got some real strong individuals, and let's not take away from PG. Guy has a family there and with the Raiders. Been there for 4 seasons now? Man, we got some roots on defense. This is pretty exciting times. I'd like to get your feedback. Raider X out.
X-Man, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, I think that the blend of skill sets that you mentioned, I think that's a really good thing, right? They all have diverse talent. John Spytek mentioned on the radio the other day, and I've said it a couple of times, about the plan for Jamal Adams. It's not going to be traditional safeties, playing in the box day one. Then Thursday he was with the linebackers. Tight ends, I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like. The tight end room really is a strong, strong room for the Raiders. I mean, obviously you got Brock Bowers, you got Big Mike. He was a high draft pick, but you've got Ian Thomas, who I see Carolina Panther fans all the time saying, "Hey man, how come Ian Thomas isn't on the roster? Go sign him." It's like, by the way, he signed with the Raiders, so he's healthy. He signed with the Raiders. He looked really good in OTAs and mandatory minicamp. He was the guy that they got the ball to early and often. There's a lot of dudes in that tight end room. Kadir Ishmael, I mentioned him before. Kadri, he's out there. His dad is out there watching. And, so he's there as well. He's a talented dude. They have maybe one of the best and most talented tight end rooms in the National Football League. Now, the problem is, as Lincoln says all the time, there's only one ball. There's only one ball, so you can't, you're not going to be able to use everybody. But I think it allows Chip Kelly the opportunity to get creative. Even with Trey Tucker, I think it allowed him to get creative as well, where him and Dante Thornton Jr. are both very fast, but they can do different things. Like, they don't have to have the same exact skill set. They can be used in different ways, and I think that gives Chip Kelly more opportunities. So thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. It's good to hear from you. Up next, got a text from 337 Raider. Hey, Q, 337 Raider here. I saw some headlines of the Raiders releasing Christian Wilkins. I was wondering who you think would be the best replacement for him. To make it more fun, I want to hear your more realistic and more far-fetched replacement. Thanks for all that you do. That's 337 Raider. And really talked about that in disc number 1, segment number 3, and even a little bit there in segment number 2 of disc number 2 about who could be the replacement. The Raiders have a handful of guys, and the funny thing is, we kind of had this conversation when we found out that they put him on the PUP list, right? But we were just talking about filling for the meantime, in between time. Adam Butler is the easy choice, right? I am highly in the camp of Jonah Laulu. I know that he brings a lot to the table. I know Lincoln's a big fan of what he brings to the table as well. I'm going to definitely be honed in on what he's doing. He's a local guy. He's from the Vegas area. He's got his family and friends. Even in the interview that I did with him, he's like, man, my mom cleaned my house the other day. I've been at the practice facility from 5:45 in the morning until 6:45 at night, and I come home and the house is clean. Like, he's so happy to be able to do what he does in front of his home friends and family and near his house. He's so thrilled and fired up, man. He's excited to go to work, so it just makes it that much better. He's got an opportunity outside of the building. Quentin Jefferson is a guy that I think could play a role. They could go out and sign him. They're very familiar with him with his time in Seattle. Outside of that, I really don't know who else they could bring in outside of having that just heavy rotation with the guys that I mentioned in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. So thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. And just got time for a couple more. This one comes from Blue Collar Raider Omar. He's calling to talk about the Raiders never being able to have nice things. And he explains. Here's Blue Collar Raider Omar.
Hey, what's up, Q? Calling out the 408 San Jose. This is your Blue Collar Raider Omar. I'm going to make it real quick. Charles Woodson is right, man. We could never have nothing nice. I swear we go into this season talking about the Christian Wilkins release. I swear we go into this season looking like a fine-tuned, bright, painted, candy-painted Lamborghini. And by the time the season ends, we're a broken down, rally rims, Pinto, man. It was good in the beginning. If it ain't Devontae Adams, it's AP. If it ain't AP, it's Henry Ruggs. Man, Henry Ruggs, it's Damon Arnett. It's always something. It's always something. We could never just have a normal, just life just keeps on lifing, man. It keeps on lifing.
Omar, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And you're not wrong, right? I mean, this team gets hit with a lot, right? I mean, just in the recent years, 2023, Chandler Jones. 2024, Devontae Adams. 2025, Christian Wilkins. Boom. Enough said. Right? Before that, Antonio Brown, Henry Ruggs in the bye week, Gruden in 2021, Khalil Mack. I mean, you can go back to what was the dude that they got from Denver, the wide receiver, and he got beat up here in Vegas, and then he didn't want to play anymore. What was his name? Javon Walker. Remember Javon Walker? Remember they gave him all that big-time money? That I know that's taking it back, right? For some new booties, that's really taking it back. You probably don't know. Just look it up. Google it. Javon Walker, Vegas. That's all you got to do. But, I mean, it seems like there's always something, right? But then, again, that's why a lot of teams don't go out and go get free agents as well either. They don't make big moves for big names. And, these guys are available for a reason, right? I mean, that's the other thing about it. When you have a big-time player and they become available, you have to ask yourself always, why are they available? What is it that their team is seeing that we're not seeing as fans, as whatever, right? That's always something. And that, I know that doesn't apply for everyone. Like Khalil Mack, when he left and went to Chicago, it was a monster. He didn't drop off. He didn't drop off until later on in his career in Chicago. He started getting a little injured, and then obviously the Chargers ended up. But he's still going strong. So I mean, there's still guys that go to other places and they get it done and they play at a high level. But it really doesn't happen as often as we think it does, right? I mean, a guy think about Jalen Ramsey. Think how many times he's been traded in his career, right? Odell Beckham Jr. Think about him when he was at the high of his career in New York. They were willing to move on from him. Right, there's guys that they're willing to move on from, and you have to wonder why. Like Antonio Brown, they moved on from him in Pittsburgh. We all know how that played out, right? Like why does that happen? And then there's other guys that just walk in free agency, like Tom Brady, which that was just dumb on the Patriots' part to let him go. And he obviously showed that by going to Tampa Bay and winning the Super Bowl. But for the most part, man, guys are free agents, are made available for a reason, and sometimes you really have to think about what that reason is. But thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Got a text from Raider Big C in L.A. It's a quick one. Hey, Q, it's Raider Big C from L.A. Great move. Q, you always say your best ability is availability. It took way too long to heal, and we need players who are serious to be Raiders. Go Raiders. Talking about Christian Wilkins and the release by John Spytek on Thursday. And, yeah, I'm with you, right? I mean, the guy got injured in week 5 of the 2024 season, and now it's, almost August, and he's still not available. And it sounded like, the thing was he needed another surgery. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to rehab it. So it doesn't sound like he was anywhere close to returning to getting on the field. And again, like Lincoln Kennedy always says, you can't make the club in the tub. Thanks so much for the text. Do appreciate you. We'll close it out with a call from Tuck Rule Fool. He's calling to react to what he heard after the first day of Raiders training camp here on the show. Here's Tuck Rule Fool to close things out.
Hey, Q. Tuck Rule Fool here, coming at you from Colorado. I just listened to your show, first day at camp, and really liked it. I'm going to be going out there myself. Maybe I can meet up with you. I think the 14th. I think it's the last day. I'll be there, so I'll look for you. I'll even have my Tuck Rule Fool jersey on. Whitson. Well, it has Tuck Rule Fool name on it, but it's Whitson 24. Anyway, I really like what you said about Dante Thornton. And here's another point about the kid's got to learn. So, they're all rookies. They're going to learn. And his superpower could be his super demise too, because if he pulls that stuff where he's not running, then, defenders are going to know, like, oh, this dude's not getting the ball because that's how he operates. So he's got to be able to, Chip Kelly's trying to run the same formations and same everything and then run different plays. You can't have any of the players tipping their hand and saying, oh, clearly I'm not getting the ball because I only run hard when I get the ball. And also it's a little bit selfish and a little bit immature too. I'm sure maybe he didn't mean it that way, but it just comes off as, well, if I'm not getting the ball, I'm not going to burn the energy. And that's something that's a bad sign too. So hopefully it's just a little bit of a blip, but that was just another reason why he does it. He's going to tip the defense off. Anyway, looking forward to hearing more about training camp through you, and glad that he's getting all the different fans in there. That's fantastic. And go Raiders, and I'll see you soon, man. Keep it up. Thanks.
Tuck Rule, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, man, I'll definitely meet up with you if you come to practice. Let me know ahead of time. I'll be there for sure. I'll be there every single day. Not doing any kind of radio show that's going to stop me from being there. Matter of fact, I got a note on that as well. But Dante Thornton Jr., yeah, I believe he could be really good. Right? He's just got to learn how to play wide receiver in the NFL. He's got to understand that it's not college. It's not Tennessee. It's not just, a one-trick pony. Like, he's going to have to learn the route tree. He's going to have to learn the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts. He's going to have to learn all of that. But he's got the raw skill set, the speed, and he's got the size. So that's definitely something to work with. And that's something that, Geno Smith's eyes can light up when he sees a guy like that out there, out there being able to make plays and get ready for him. So, there's definitely that, and we'll see. Again, it's only a couple days into practice, so I wouldn't get too concerned, over a mistake or two, and even made a mistake on Thursday. So, a couple days in a row. But like I said, it's only a couple days into practice. As long as he doesn't continue to make those mistakes, they'll be fine because he's out there working. That's for sure. He's working his tail off. So thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. And I mentioned that, I had some radio news to pass along, and some already know it's been out on social media for a while. But Joe and Q, we started the show on ESPN back in February 10th to be exact. Well, by September 2nd, it's going to come to an end because Rich Eisen is returning to ESPN. So it's nothing I did. It's just, Rich Eisen, Q Myers, Rich Eisen. Rich Eisen's going to win that every time. So I'm still doing, ESPN. I'm going to go back to game night. But in the meantime, in between time, I've made sure that I have all of training camp clear from ESPN radio duties in general, so I can be there, and cover the Raiders every single day, which is awesome, which is great because it makes this show that much better. So not going anywhere, just kind of shifting to a new time slot. I'll be on 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. on ESPN starting on September 2nd. And, again, be able to provide all the coverage here on the show for the Raiders. And that's what matters, right, leading into the 2025 season. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm all over it. So that's just a good thing. So it's not a bad thing. And it's, like I said, not going anywhere. If I was going somewhere and they fired me, that would be different. And then it'd be like, hey, man, tough times, right? But that's not the case. Just moving down the dial to 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific time, game night, which is what I was doing to begin with. So that's it for the show. That's it for the double disc. A little long on this one. Look, we do 2 shows in one day, and we still go long. Like, Ari's shaking his head right now. Like, if you don't wrap this show up, you're already on the disc number 2. You're going to have a third, show coming out today if you don't shut up and get into the weekend. So we'll go ahead and do that and let Ari stop pulling out his hair. But until Monday, Raider Nation, got to practice today, got to practice on Sunday. We'll have plenty to talk about on Monday. We'll give you the full recap and a lot more. Trust and believe that. So have a fantastic weekend. We'll be back on Monday right here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until then, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.